Everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks to GMAT Club for hosting. I hope everyone is healthy and doing well in these challenging times. I'm here today to talk about something that unfortunately many people go through, and that's being turned down from your top choice school or perhaps even all of the schools to which you applied. There's no getting around it. It stings. It really, really does. And it's okay, to feel really discouraged and to frankly even take a break from all things MBA for, a period of time and really just kind of lick your wounds. It's completely natural. But eventually, you're going to start to think about whether reapplying makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. It really is a personal decision. But the presentation today is going to cover, how to go about thinking about reapplying. And I have some slides to go through, which I hope you find helpful. And at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. All right, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen, so give me a minute to pull up the presentation. Okay. So as I mentioned, today's topic is how to approach the reapplication process. What we'll cover today, go through a quick introduction of myself. We'll talk about the main topic, how to approach the reapplication process in 2 steps. And then at the end, I actually have 2 case studies of clients of ours that have been successful with reapplying. So we'll share their profile the first time they applied and the second time they applied, what changed and kind of what the outcome was. So I hope those will be inspiring for you. And then again, at the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So my name is Katie McQuarrie. I graduated from Kellogg. It's been a couple of years now, actually a number of years. After Kellogg, I served as an alumni interviewer for Kellogg for a number of years, which I really enjoyed, and have been working in admissions consulting now for a while. I work for a firm called Vantage Point, which you see on all of the slides here. And, the way that we work with clients is we really are the advisors, mentors, and coaches throughout the entire application process, from really just thinking about, should I even get my MBA, all the way through to interview prep and waitlist strategy if it comes to that. And a lot of times, if someone does want to reapply again, we help people pick up, dust off, and reapply. So really the way that we work as a firm is we're very high touch. We take a limited number of clients, each of the consultants every year. So it's very personalized. We form strong relationships with our clients. I think another key thing that I love about Vantage Point is we really leverage the experience of our team. So, we have admissions consultants that went to all of the top schools, most of them at least, or have experience with them. And we, tap into each other's expertise and ask questions, and it's a very collaborative environment, which I love. And as a result, we have some great results for our clients. Our clients get into top MBA programs at 3 times the average rate of those who don't leverage our services. So we're pretty proud of that. That's enough about that. Let's get to the main topic, how to approach the reapplication process. So once you're kind of ready to pick up and dust yourself off and move forward from a disappointing result, The first step is to take a really hard look at what may have been the weakness or weaknesses in your application the first time around. That will guide your approach on how you're going to go about reapplying and doing it successfully. And so the best way to really do this is to get an unbiased opinion. Whether this is a consultant or just a friend or a mentor that's gone through the MBA journey, all of those are great resources. But a lot of times it does help to just plop your application package in front of someone who has not previously seen it and ask them for an unbiased opinion of the picture it presents about you. With that said, we offer that service for clients. So I've done this a fair number of times for people. And there are four things that I often find are the drivers of someone having an unsuccessful result in applying. The first is fairly cut and dry. It's your stats, it's your GMAT or GRE, and it's your GPA. You can have a compelling story, and that can help you overcome a slight deviation from school's averages on one of these metrics, but a huge deviation or a deviation on both is going to be hard to overcome because you are competing with other people who may have a great GMAT and a great GPA and a great story. Perhaps they come from the same industry as you, and more times than not, schools are going to select that other candidate. So it could be your stats. That definitely is something that I think people think is easier to overcome than it truly may be. I mean, if you look at the averages for these programs, so for the M7, the average GMAT score is around 730, give or take. GPA is 3.5. So those are really great, really tough to achieve metrics. And the fact that there are averages means that a lot of people are higher than that. Some are lower, but you really do need to be in the range, especially if you're coming from an overrepresented background, whether that be geographical in nature or you're a consultant or you're a banker or one of the top feeder industries. And these are certainly things you can work on, which we'll get to later. The second reason I see a lot of people have challenges in their applications is school selection. This is not just applying to too hard of schools or too easy of schools. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about the number of schools here specifically. Looking back at your prior application, you may have applied to too few or too many schools. So there's two sides of the coin here, and it's really important to find the appropriate balance. So too few schools, whether those schools are top 10, top 20, applying to too few schools means you're not spreading your risk around. The average acceptance rate for the top programs hovers around 20%. Some are as low as 6% for Stanford, 6% acceptance. So that's really low. If you just apply to, 1, 2 programs, there's a good chance that even if you have a perfect application, you're not going to get in. So we typically find that the best number here, you want to really apply to at least 4 programs, 4 to 5. I see a lot of people thinking that they want to apply to more than that, maybe 6, maybe 7. My experience is that this is really challenging when people look to apply to too many schools. Schools want to feel in the application that you've taken the time to do your research about their particular program. It's really important, and people underestimate that. And it is hard to do that and make a cohesive case for why that particular program is right for you if you are spread too thin. You can't keep your details straight. The narrative around why that program is right for you sounds generic, like it could fit any of their competing programs. So, once you go beyond the 5 school mark, it's real tough to do your applications for each well. And of course, there's the time constraint there too. You're working, these applications are a lot of work, which people also tend to underestimate. So point being, make sure that you pick out the schools that truly fit for you. And, if there are 4 to 5 schools that you would love to attend, that's a great number to consider. The third reason that a lot of people are unsuccessful in getting admitted to the programs where they applied are career goals. So they might be, too ambitious. They might be too unambitious, frankly. You want to find your goals that resonate with the AdCom. They need to be realistic. So, maybe you're mentioning positions that companies hire MBAs for all the time. It's realistic that you could get one of those positions based on your background. So they need to be realistic and then ambitious, especially in the long-term goals that you lay out. You may have a very realistic stepping stone coming out of your MBA program, but then long-term, it's okay to have a fairly lofty vision, but you want to lay out the steps and the skills you'll need to get there and how an MBA will fit. At the end of the day, these schools are businesses. They want to make sure that their graduates are successful in obtaining jobs, that they're marketable to hiring firms, so that they, are successful and ultimately contribute back to the school at the end of the day as an alum. So, your goal should be specific too, in that you may even want to mention, some target companies that you've talked to or that you would be interested in applying to for your internship or for a full-time job. Look at the employment reports that the schools publish. Is that a hiring company that comes to campus? You can, network with current students and ask those questions. So you really want to have specific, realistic, but ambitious, and then authentic is the last piece of the puzzle there. What that means is you want your future career goals to fit with who you are, what your personal passions are. Maybe you're passionate about healthcare and healthy living, and that guides you wanting to go into a career that, enables that for people. Product manager at a healthcare tech company, something like that. Having a very cohesive narrative about who you are, what your personal brand is, how your passions drive your decisions and your goals in life. That is sort of the icing on the cake, but a very important icing on the cake that sets you apart from, perhaps, a crowded subset of people with a similar background to you. So the last piece of the puzzle here that may have been the reason for rejection is a skills gap. Whether or not you actually truly have a skills gap or whether it just didn't come across in your application, I've seen it go both ways. The key is to show, not tell, that you have the traits that business schools are looking for. And what that means is, you have to, in your resume, in your essays, in your interviews, you have to talk about the best experiences you have in your arsenal that showcase the skills that business schools are looking for. That you're intelligent, you're a leader, you're a team player, you're innovative, and you have a track record of success. So those are sort of the key things that the business schools look for, and you want to really showcase that in your applications. And so I wanted to also point out here, not only can the issue here be that, perhaps you just didn't play up these traits very well in your prior application. It can also be that you're kind of lacking some of them, and that's okay. And that can be a great reason why you could get in next year and not this year. Perhaps you work really hard to build up one of these qualities and find some experiences that showcase them. It could just be, in this, happens a lot, that maybe you're a little, you're too young. So you just haven't had the opportunity to have demonstrable results of these things quite yet. So those are the reasons that I often see people not having success with their applications. So what do you do about that? So, the key to a successful reapplication is showing improvement since the last time that you submitted your application. And there's not a ton of time to show material improvement, and that's why it's important to get started early. You don't want to wait until the month before your next application is due, because that's going to really limit your ability to make concrete steps that help you set yourself apart from where you were the last time that you applied. So if you think about what you should do and what actions you should take, let your actions be guided by the weaknesses that you've assessed when you sit down and really take a hard look at, what the schools may have seen in your application that they, didn't think you were the best fit for their program. If it's your stats, retake the GMAT if you can. I know it's a ton of work, and it's a lot of time invested, but getting that right score really can help you. Perhaps if the GMAT is something you've really struggled with, you've taken it a lot of times, maybe the GRE would be better for you. We're seeing increasing numbers every year of people that get into top business school programs with a GRE score, and it's frankly just sometimes a better fit for people's logic styles. So that's an option. If your GPA is, significantly below the average for the schools to which you're applying, you can also consider taking a supplemental course, and the key being, make it one that you can show a grade for, and that you can, do well. So you want to get that A. It can be at a local community college. It's a little bit weird with the times that we're in right now to think about an in-person class, but that aside, it could be at a community college near your home. Definitely could be online. This is the perfect time to take advantage of that. Coursera has some great courses through Wharton. There's HBX Core. Those are some really good examples of online courses you can take, do well, and then you can showcase that in your application if you think that schools may have had some questions in their minds about your academic ability based on what your undergrad GPA was. So school selection, really sit back and think about what schools are right for you. As I mentioned before, 4 to 5 is typically the sweet spot. The key to figuring out what those programs are is to research and network. You can reach out to the admissions office of these schools, have them connect you with current students if you don't know any in your personal network. Maybe even have them connect you with someone in an industry club that's a fit with your goals, and try to chat with someone who might be like-minded. You can definitely recommend visiting campus if you can. Right now, that's obviously not an option. Do an online visit, do an online admissions event, and take the time to really get to know the program. What are its strengths? What resources does it have available? What courses do they offer? How does it, brand itself? And how does that fit with the way that you work best, your particular goals, and all of that? Also along the networking vein is, if your career goals were perhaps not defined clearly in your prior application, or were either, maybe too ambitious, not ambitious enough, you really rethink that a little bit. It doesn't have to be a vast difference from what you outlined the prior time, but in a nuanced way, if you can show you've really done your research about your desired career path, it can buy you a lot of points. So, do targeted research. Look on LinkedIn, people that have gone to the programs to which you want to apply. Where do they end up afterwards? Where do they end up, 5 years out, 10 years out? You can do a lot of that, on LinkedIn. Again, network. If you don't have people in your personal network that may fit the bill, shoot them a note on LinkedIn, see if you can, get them to connect with you and offer you even 5 or 10 minutes of their time. It can go a long way. I actually did a similar GMAT Club YouTube session on networking that you might find helpful. What I recommended in that session is that you should try to identify 3 people to have, quick chats with that will help you determine your school selection. And then 3 people, this is minimums, obviously, that can help you, reflect on your career goals and refine those. So, it's not a small task, and I think people underestimate the effort that should be put into the networking component of your application, really for your own education because it will help you, and then also because it creates a cohesive, realistic, authentic story in your essays and elsewhere in the application. And then, if you think maybe you didn't showcase all of the skills that the business schools were looking for, so intelligence, teamwork, leadership, innovation, and a track record of success. If you think maybe you were lacking there, lay out a matrix, and we do this for our clients a lot, and where down the y-axis put all of the skills, and across the x-axis put components of the application where you can showcase those skills. And a lot of times you want to reinforce them in 2 places, not just one. So maybe you showcase teamwork, you tell some great stories in your essays, and then also there are some great bullets on your resume that talk about team-based successes that you've had. And if you do find that you don't have real good examples in one area or another, seek out experiences between now and your reapplication that address any gaps. Maybe at work or extracurricularly, you can try to take on a leadership role on a project. Maybe you can, gather a group of coworkers to, to do something team-based, even if it's sort of fun and outside work, even if it's, creating virtual happy hours or way to stay connected with your team members. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to thrive right now and to really set yourself apart by making that extra effort in these uncertain times. So those are kind of the steps that we recommend taking. You just have to be methodical about assessing what may have gone wrong and then taking action early to make sure that you show improvement next year when you go to reapply. And so here are some success stories of people that did just that. So on the left-hand side here, this is the first one. It was a consultant at a top firm. He went to a top 5 undergrad. So, great institution, 3.4 GPA, which is slightly below the school's average, but, really solid, especially because he had that, top 5 undergrad. It was a very reputable program. 700 GMAT with a low quant. So, this is where I mentioned coming from consulting, this probably, was an issue for him the first time that he applied. Consulting is very crowded. A lot of people, do well on the GMAT. Having a 700 with a low quant, probably set him back. And, unfortunately, in his first year applying, he was dinged from 6 programs in the top 10. So what did he do about it? He came back and reapplied, didn't change his job, obviously didn't change his undergrad or his GPA, but he got a higher GMAT and particularly got that quant score up. So now, with the 740, he was within range of his peer set, and he was admitted to 4 of the top 10 schools. So he really didn't do a whole lot except retake the GMAT. And then he also, tweaked a little bit of his profile to help separate himself and differentiate himself from the other consultants. He had more of a national security focus to his project work, and so he talked a lot about that, and then parlayed that into a very compelling career vision that leveraged his past experience and personal passions to formulate, where he wants to go. So on the right-hand side is the second profile that I wanted to share with you. So this was a female, and she was in healthcare consulting, so also consulting, but with a healthcare spin. Great promotion trajectory, top 50 undergrad, 3.4 GPA, okay, fine, 680 GMAT. So, frankly, not great. That is certainly a weakness. She was dinged from her top 2 choice schools. So she felt like it was in her best interest to reapply. So what changed between year 1 and year 2? So she actually changed jobs. She was able to get a higher level position in brand management. And the key thing there, in addition to getting a higher level position and tweaking her focus a little bit, she demonstrated her career progression more clearly. So the first year, she had sort of had some intricacies that made it seem like her progression hadn't been as seamless as it could have been. And so it was really just about clearly communicating the achievements that she had from year 1 to year 2. She did not retake the GMAT, didn't obviously change her GPA or her undergrad, but she was admitted to Kellogg. So she mitigated the low GMAT very well in the optional essay. Again, she demonstrated her career progression more clearly. And then, similar to our first case study, she articulated a clearer, more concise vision for her career goals and kind of her why MBA. All right, so that is all the material that I had to share today. I know the prospect of reapplying can be overwhelming, but rest assured, as I think our case studies showed, that people are successful at it. Sometimes it even takes more than 2 times. You hear those people doing, applying to Stanford 3-4 years in a row and then finally getting in. It does happen. I would say that most people apply 2 years, if max. That would be my experience with clients. But the key is to identify where you were weak last time, take action, and then show growth from your prior application. All right, so I'm gonna click out here and stop sharing my screen, and then we can do some Q&A. Great question. Does it affect your admission chances if you are reapplying to the business school? So generally speaking, business schools like the dedication it shows when people reapply. They like that you're not deterred by setbacks and that you're going to kind of go for what you want. So no, I don't think that it negatively impacts your admission chances, so long as, again, as I mentioned in my presentation, you can show that you've done something to address the weakness that they potentially saw in your application last time. I wouldn't say your chances are any better as a reapplicant, but I don't think they're materially worse. And, all things being equal, if you can improve something, obviously they can be better. If you apply after 2 or 3 years from the rejection, will you still be considered a reapplicant? Yes, I believe you will be. It might be somewhat school specific, so you would want to reach out to admissions to get a final answer on this. But I think that if you've applied within, the last 3 years, I think maybe even 5 years, they would consider you a reapplicant. It's based on my experience, which tends to be friendly and which look at them critically. So I don't know that any of them really look at them critically. I would say, Stanford, as I mentioned, a lot of people apply there multiple years in a row and ultimately get in. So I would say that they, like reapplicants. I think Kellogg values reapplicants as well. I wouldn't say that any are particularly reapplicant unfriendly. But again, that's just part of getting to know the school, how they view it, and making the case for why it specifically is the right program for you. Um, so are there any other benefits of taking online courses besides supporting a low GPA? I mean, if you have a low GMAT quant score and you take a course, it can help offset that. It can just demonstrate the effort you're putting into having a successful application. Um, so I think there's a multitude of things that it can speak to about who you are as an applicant. Most often, I do see people with like a slightly lower than average GPA, or even, maybe they had like a bombed course in statistics or something that may raise a red flag on their transcript. Maybe kind of retake that as sort of view it as like a do over for the school. So even if your overall GPA is not terrible, it really can't hurt to take an online course if you have the time, and some of these obviously do cost money. So there's that element of it too. So it really can't hurt. And I would say the benefits are, supporting a low GPA or a poor grade, low quant GMAT score, or just showing commitment to the application process. Yeah, so this is sort of about asking for feedback. You're gonna I think there are varying levels of success that people get with this. Sometimes you get a very direct answer. Sometimes you don't. Some schools are more apt to share feedback with you. I don't think it can hurt. I think it can only help to ask in a very respectful, open kind of way, in framing it in the vein of, I want to figure out how I can improve my candidacy. Asking for that feedback from admissions can be helpful. I had one client this year that, he had a very low GPA. He had a 2.7 GPA from undergrad, and he reached out to the admissions office. He ended up actually getting waitlisted from Darden, and they frankly told him that if they could average in his GPA and keep their statistic where they wanted it, that they would accept him. So really, they were very frank that, hey, it's your GPA. We know you can do the coursework. We'd love to have you, but we need to make sure that our numbers work out. And so that was really good for him because he knows there's not really a whole lot more he can do, at least with that particular program, because it can't change that number. He'd taken a bunch of courses. He had a 750 or 770 GMAT, a very strong GMAT. They knew he could do the work. They were very frank with him, but I don't know, beyond sort of cut and dry answers. I don't see people getting a ton of real valuable feedback, but it can't hurt, and it can only help to ask. Will be considered reapplication if we apply for a different program after 3 or 4 years. Um, So this might be somewhat school specific, and it might depend how different the program is. Like if it's, a master's in finance versus an MBA, I mean, that's a pretty different program. I would say you have to reach out to them to ask if you are considered a reapplicant. And being a reapplicant, really all that means is that check that box on the application, and then you usually have to fill out or do another additional essay that talks about what you've done since you last applied. Um, will it affect admission chances for a different program? So this is kind of a nuanced answer that's hard to generalize without knowing specific circumstances. I would say you need to tell the story if you are considered a reapplicant. So they're going to be looking at your prior application and your current application. You would have to really tell them why your career goals have changed and now this different program makes sense for you. Don't leave that question out there for them. Draw the connection. In my experience since the last time I applied, it's pointed me in this new career direction because of, X, Y, and Z and such. I feel that the second program to which I'm applying is the right fit for me at this time because, and really expand on why it's a fit. And if that, if you do that well, and it makes sense to the AdCom, I don't see it as being, hindering you. Whether it makes sense to take the online GMAT where you probably will not do well or apply this year or apply in round one. Um, so this is something that we're talking to clients about a lot, obviously. With the online GMAT, I don't know if there's enough data points out there yet to determine, how people are doing relative to in person. I would say taking the GMAT online and, you obviously don't have to go anywhere. I think they're even waiving the cost of it. It frankly can't hurt. You can always cancel the score if it's like really bad, or you could, take it again in June or July and show improvement. So the way I would approach this is take the online GMAT, see how it goes. If it goes reasonably well, and you're able to put together strong applications between now and the extended deadlines this year, you may as well lob in an application. We do, I'm sure you've all read this, we do think that next year with the number of deferrals and, with the economy not in the best spot, applications are going to be up significantly next year. So it will be spots will be fewer if people defer and then decide to go in 2021. So it's going to be competitive next year. So if you can get in a great application this year, it can't hurt to do it. Round three is always, not the best. There aren't that many spots left in the class. I think this year's obviously an exception, so not quite as competitive, but you do have to put together a great application. That said, ordinarily, I wouldn't recommend someone apply in round three and then round one if they couldn't show some level of improvement. Schools are relaxing this a little bit. They realize that you may get dinged in round three simply because all of the spots from your kind of cohort are taken. And then if you apply in round one again, that might not be the case. So they're not going to view it as negatively if you, apply round three, don't get in, play round one with a very similar profile. I don't think they're going to be looking for the same level of improvement year over year as they would ordinarily, just given these weird circumstances. So that, I guess, is probably the last question aside from this one here. I can post this on the comments, but my email is katie@vantagepointmba.com. So that would be the best way to reach out to me. We do 30-minute consults for free if anyone wants to take advantage of that or, chat more, pick our brains. Happy to do that. Okay, well, I think that is it for today. Thank you so much for your time and thank you very much for putting up there's my email address, and to GMAT Club for hosting this. I hope everyone stays healthy. I wish everyone the best and good luck on your MBA journey.